Uncle Four Eyes here, and again, I'm late to the game when it comes to this, but clearly I wasn't when it came to buying it. So I want to show off not so much the story itself, but just the. I want to make this just mostly just about the how cool this is to make and how formatting can be a deal breaker or like something that just sells at least for me what sells a comic or just anything, right? What product will be more lucrative or not lucrative, excuse me, more eye-catching than if you had chosen a different way. So for anyone who doesn't know, this was also picked up, the story was picked up by Image and was made into like a slightly oversized comic size like version of the same story. And to me, I thought that like when I looked at it, I didn't even buy it because I was like, you know what, granted I already had this, but there was just something about it's inferior to this aesthetic. I don't know if like that was intentional for the creator to have this be the ideal look to it, or just what he could get away with or could afford or whatever, right? I'd love to hear from Jesse himself. But when I looked at the book, it seemed like it was overproduced, or at least knowing that this exists, that if you had to put two in front of me, I'd be like, I want this. This goes back to again why I like buying 2000 AD comics or any other of those newspaper formats, because they just aesthetically they look way more interesting. They're a lot more fragile, of course, or a lot more temperamental and hard. Like I don't put this in any of my long boxes or anything. Like I'm seeing some damage here, and it's like I don't remember. I think that's probably just because it's free floating in my collection for the most part. And I don't know, I just wanted to like talk about how this aesthetically just feels way more of a, I don't know, I just like it more. This just looks cooler than an overly produced book. It's just like when I saw the book of the same story, I'm like, yeah, it would probably just be something I just pass on. Maybe the art in it would have been like, if there's only that, I'd be like, oh, what's with this whole like motif of like storytelling with boxes, which is I feel like his thing now. Again, it's a beautiful comic, period, but I just love being able to do this, and maybe that's why there's just some people in the industry that just can't get over. Like in my case, that's like I'm a nobody, and yet like this to me is, I don't know, does this make me a cooler, more legit artist or comic book fan if I like this format than a typical, you know, modern spine book, books, a bookstore style book, where this is like harkens back to like you would have to like the comic strip days and stuff, and you have to like you only have that choice to do comic strips because that's the only form until they made those, until they made funnies. But it also, I think, you get a different experience size-wise too. Like I love treasury editions and stuff like that, oversizes and stuff like just anything bigger. And that, again, I think it's just like that idea where the spectacle of it just in hand is like way more the awe factor. This is way more compelling than if you were just to give me, I'm not saying like a little book is worse than a bigger book, but the idea that you give me something that would be like, oh, well, everyone does this format, everyone does it to this standard, but not everyone does this. Or let me divulge just a little bit, or at least give another example. I'm going to reach over here and do a little bit of a segue where here's a little book that I love, and it's supposed to be like, it's got like little lyrics and stuff like that, and it's done with I always want to say duplex printing, but that's not the word I'm looking for. It's It's another word for, it's the little cylinder canisters that you load certain colors. Dupla, is it dupla printing? I see. That's again. I'm a fake fan. Yeah, it's just like a collection of like folklore, and it's like supposed to be like almost like a. So I think it's a little bigger than what you would find in like a CD case, but I think that's kind of the point that it's getting across. And you're supposed to like, I think there's music that you have to go to like, I forget it because I haven't, like it says listen along. So like I think you listen to stuff while looking at this, which again, going back to like presentation, like that sells me on it. Not just the cute pictures, but it's got a gimmick. And again, it's there you go. This is another one of those things where this I feel like is just way more impactful, and his original art I think is probably the like old comic strip size paper, which is like huge. It's bigger than 11 by 17. I don't know the specific number page size, but if I'm correct, historically like Little Nemo and whatnot was like done on like huge paper, like twice as the size I think of like 11 by 17. I couldn't even tell you what that size is because I think it's either not really it's like either, well, the paper itself is not, but like the using that big of a piece of paper is kind of non-existent for most things. Everything's just standardized to like 11 by 17 at this point. So some of that art form, like with time, gets phased out, or for me, like it barely has. I barely have any like living in this world where there's like I probably would know more about digital formats than I do, analog formats based on just the fact of my age and the time we live in right now. So unless I'm a historian or really go out of my way to remember some of that stuff, like it's the joke where it dies with those people, which sucks because I actually kind of do want to know more of that stuff. And again, I made this YouTube channel so that you guys can then also educate me, and we just share the love. Tell me how wrong I am about any of the stuff that I ever say, because it's more of like a discussion, and like it's always about discovery, and I'm not here to like prove anything overwhelmingly prove anything like, oh yeah, I know everything about this, I know more than Jesse himself knows. It's like, that's dumb. I'm not gonna I'm also very forgetful, or I have kind of a memory problem, so sometimes I'm just like, I just draw. I recognize this thing. Oh, I get that reference, DiCaprio, that meme. Sometimes I get that. But this is just a beautiful comic. This is out of print now, ever since the Kayfabe guys reviewed it. So we all went and I think got to his Etsy store, and bought up all the copies. So that's why I think the other half of it is why they turned it into an Image comic, not just because he was out of stock himself, but because I think they just wanted it anyways, just because, I don't know. I wonder if that's how stuff gets moved around, So I got copy 985 out of apparently 4 digits worth. I don't know. I want to say probably had 1,000 print run, 1,000 copy print run. But like, again, I just love the newspaper aspect of it. It's big. It's very impractical, which I love. I love sometimes, like, not everything has to be convenient or practical. Like, again, this clearly has a reason for existing in this format. Otherwise, one of two things. It's out of the ability to actually materialize it in the way you want it to, based off of certain parameters, can you afford it, whatnot. And other times it's like, no, I meant to do this like all along. Like there's no, my excuse is this is why it looks like shit. Like, I don't think this, like, I think this needs to be reprinted in this format. But again, I don't have to say in that. But again, this is beautiful. We need more playing around with the art form. Like, clearly the comic itself is, you noticed there's no words really in it, but this is playing on a lot of different tropes, or not tropes, ideas of like storytelling, where how you format it in itself is an experiment in storytelling, which again, this is a quick read because you just kind of go, ooh, look at the pretty pictures. But it's also a nice way but it's also easy to revisit too, so you can go back to it and be like, oh, I didn't notice that the first time. Or like this is like art, like you would put on a canvas and be like, oh, okay, stare at this one picture until you go, wow. Or, however fine art is kind of picked apart over time with because it's a single image. Granted, you could argue this is all one image or a series of little images. The right answer is yes. But it's also sequential, obviously, as you churn pages. Then you change up some of the little boxes format. Like this one goes into bigger. These now are bigger shots. There's still the smaller ones. It's still obviously in the same. Like these all would still, like, you could technically imagine all the boxes still in this, but you just omit the gutters then. But yeah, again, it's a fun experience, and I think the word experience is a big part of not just saying, oh, I read it and got it, and since I now read it and got it, I know everything, or I'm a fan, or whatever. It's like, just like, sometimes things are just like, it's like music sometimes, where if it just washes over your ears, and someone saying, well, did you get it? Do you understand it? It's like, I experienced it. So I guess for me, understanding it or whatever is a later process, something that happens down the line. Like in the moment, I'm just looking at cool stuff. Like, just give me a break. Let me just kind of have my eyes be, I don't know, spoiled. It's like eating something you shouldn't be eating, but it tastes so good. And it's like, yeah, but it's so bad. You're like, yeah, that's not kind of the point why I ate it. It's not because I want to eat something bad. It's because it tastes good. I'll punish myself later. But right now, it's just like, oh, cool. Look at all this stuff. So yeah, you can constantly just keep looking at it over and over again. I flipped it through this second time. Achieving something like this, I feel like it's pretty daunting in terms of trying to compose everything. Like, this has an open border now, or panel. I think that's the first time he's done that in this. Like, that's a standout. And then the negative space is now, like, see, like every page has a new take on the one gimmick, essentially. And I mean, not all of them, of course, but like these, sometimes you can tell, like this one, this is the new change up. This one is now more vertical than it is kind of grid based. It's more column based. Yeah, I feel like this is one of those ones that, again, you would say, oh, this inspired me to do what I do. And this is a fairly modern take on storytelling and comic book making and designing. And it's stuff like this that always kind of reinforces not just having to reinvent the wheel for the sake of like getting people back into it, but like that's always a plus. Like, they do that with everything else. Like, how do you get people back into the theaters, or how do you get people start playing video, a type of genre of video games or something again. It's like, oh, because Elden Ring helped, because it's not just a good game, but it also kind of reinvigorates the whatever you want to call that genre, the Souls-like genre, which is easy for From Software to do, and that's kind of their actual company's forte. I've been Four Eyes. Thanks for all the comments, likes, views. I'm past 50 subscribers. That's awesome. Thanks to those 50 plus. And till next time, I'm out.